big wheels and high heels and a whole lot of what I see. And you're a mighty fine handful of beautiful, and baby, that works for me. Got a payday pocket and a rock and roll rocket and a kick drum in my brain. So if you wanna throw down in crazy town, baby, just say, abso-freaking-lutely. I don't need Cupid to shoot me. Baby, if you wanna move me anywhere you wanna do me, abso-freaking-lutely. I don't need Cupid to shoot me. Baby, if you wanna move me anywhere you wanna do me, abso-freaking-lutely, yeah. Abso-freaking-lutely. Abso-freaking-lutely.
Hey, this is Michaela, and you're listening to The David Bowers.
Kyle Burgall from upstate New York, abso-freaking-lutely. And if you think that sounds like a drinking song, stick around because the next one's even better. You're going to love it. Let's bring him in right now and meet the man who made the music, Kyle Burgall. Welcome aboard, Kyle.
Thanks, David. How you doing today?
Doing just fine. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day here in upstate New York.
And did you get you were on the fringes there. Did you get to experience that moment of dimness?
Just briefly. I mean, it really didn't get too dark up here, but I did go outside to check it out for a second.
And,
how about you?
Well, had a little bit of it. Well, actually, we had plenty of sunshine, but just enough clouds to make viewing it much easier on television than it was in real life. But yeah, it was. It's an experience. I mean, you know, it's one of those once-in-a-lifetime things where it's that total over the entire United States. There've been a couple of smaller ones, but to be total over the country from side to side is very unusual. And Kyle, you were brought to our attention by an old friend of ours, Dan Kohler of Tier 1 Talent up in Albany. And he's right. You got talent. And tell us a little bit about how you got that talent.
Well, I appreciate that, David. Growing up, I was surrounded by country music with my parents. They'd throw neighborhood parties, and they had this one lady in particular that would come down to play some acoustic songs, and she had a great yodeling voice, and she got me really interested in country music at a young age. And from there, I lived in Douglasville, Georgia in the early 90s, and of course, down there you don't have much choice to listen to country music, and I got hooked on that early generation of country when Garth was coming big, and Travis Tritt and Alan Jackson, and all those guys were huge influences on me, and I just began singing, and finally got with a band up here. See, up in New York, it's not very easy to come by a country band because not everybody wants to play country music up here. So when I finally got the right guys in place is when we put the album in place, and now we're playing them, and it's going over really well.
Fantastic, and I can identify with what you're saying about upstate New York because that's my home sod. I'm from out in the Utica Rome area originally, and I spent 10 years in Capital District Radio. So I'm familiar with what the market used to be. I'm sure it's changed a little bit, but overall, I think the basics are still there. There are pockets of country music. There's really pockets of all kinds of music, and I understand the market has gotten a little better for live music, although it's not as good as it should be. I don't think. I think we're suffering
not as good
from.
As it used to be for sure.
Yeah, we're suffering from a real loss of good live music venues, especially for the up and coming artists. Now, how would you classify yourself as far as this stage of your career? Do you consider yourself beyond up and coming? Are you still emerging? Are you on the next level? Where would you say you fit into the scale?
I would still up and coming. We're doing very well around this area, the Capital District, but obviously there's much more to hit and get out to. So up and coming would be a good one. I think that's a fair assessment.
Great. Now, John Bon Jovial, you're sitting quietly by, and I know that usually means you've got something you'd like to say.
Well, first of all, Kyle, welcome. We're thrilled that you're with us.
Thank you, John.
The song, oh, yeah. Hey, I'll tell you what. I absolutely enjoyed that song that we just played. That was... hey, come on! We were wide open for that one.
You're
but that was yeah, nice. Really nice production on it. You've got some great rock qualities in there, and of course a heavy country influence. And I can see something like that being played on, for example, Sirius XM's Outlaw Country. That's really nice song. Well done, sir.
I appreciate that. That song was written by a guy named Jeff Dayton, and if you're not familiar with Jeff was Glenn Campbell's band leader for 15 years back in the 80s and early 90s.
And that is why I know that.
I'm sure it is, yeah.
I know the name, yeah.
And Jeff's just a tremendous singer, songwriter, musician himself.
That's great.
How did you come in contact with Jeff and get this song?
Well, a friend of mine I got to know through the music business. His name is Eddie Kilgallen. He's the one that produced my CD. Eddie's from East Greenbush, New York. Yeah, he's from East Greenbush, New York, and he was introduced to me by a friend I work with who used to play in a band with him before he moved to Nashville. So Eddie and Jeff were good friends, and when Eddie started sending me up the original music from Nashville, he included some of Jeff's music, and that's how I first heard of Abso-Freakin'
You got some good creds and good contacts there. Sounds like you've been doing your homework behind the scenes too. Are you doing any shows and tours now?
We just come off the summer tour as a local tour, but we did play some pretty big events, including the Charlie Daniels. We opened up for him down at the Plaza down in Albany, and what a tremendous experience that was to open up for old Charlie. He's an incredible musician and singer, still at this age at 81. So we're very honored to be able to do that.
Every bit of that. We've had him on the show a couple of times, and we just love getting a chance to talk to him because, it's one of those conversations that could go on for hours if you let it and have the time to do it. And I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought up Charlie Daniels because I understand that you and Charlie are working or co-opting on a veterans benefit.
We are. What we're doing is this. When I had the honor to meet him, he actually signed my fiddle. And what I decided to do with that was, instead of keeping it for myself and putting it up on the wall where I could look at it every day and keep it for whatever reason, I decided that it would probably be a great idea because we're big supporters of the United States military in the Kyle Bergalt Band. We figured it'd be a great opportunity to raise money for a disabled veteran for this holiday season. So what we're doing is we're raffling off $5 raffle tickets from our shows to put your name in the drawing to win that fiddle. And the drawing is going to be second week in December, and the money will be dispersed to a disabled veteran who is in need or their family this coming holiday season.
Fantastic. Now, one of our bylaws here at the David Bowers Awards Club is that self-promotion is highly encouraged. So why don't you run through the part again about how they can go ahead and get the raffle ticket and restate what it is they're going to win.
So they can buy a raffle ticket to win an autographed fiddle by Charlie Daniels by coming out to one of our shows, which is the Kyle Bergault Band. And you can find us on YouTube and Facebook. And our website is www.thekbb, as in the Kyle Bergault Band, .website. And
Fantastic.
they can come out and purchase a $5 ticket to win that fiddle at the shows. And we've raised almost $500 so far without even really trying at this point.
And the monies go to?
The monies go to a disabled veteran in need. It's to be determined at this point. We want to find somebody local up here that we hear through word of mouth that is in need. So that's what we're trying to do.
That's a fantastic promotion, and I salute you, sir, for coming up with that. And working with Charlie Daniels isn't a bad way to go either. I know the veterans appreciate people like you. John Bon Jovial, you've got something to add.
Yeah, well, of course, Charlie Daniels, we've had him on the show a few times, and he really is, he's the real deal. He's a genuine article. But Kyle, what I want to ask you, you mentioned this woman in your life that would play acoustic country music for you, but surely there has got to be more than one influence in your life. So, without making it sound like a resume, give us a little bit about your background, where you're from and what your general idea or philosophy on music is.
Well, I'm from upstate New York, and Eagle Mills in particular, and that's just a small little suburb outside of Troy, New York, not far from Albany. I grew up listening to country music. My dad was a very big country music fan. My mother was as well. Ann Murray, Kenny Rogers, the list goes on and on. My dad was a huge Gene Autry fan, so I'm going way back when it goes to country. And
nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah, when I was real young, I was like, oh, here's Gene Autry again. But then as the years went on, I learned to appreciate through the neighborhood parties and just how incredible country music was, and what that has done for me is, what I'm trying to do through my music is what country music has done for me. I want to touch somebody out there the way that it's touched me. You know what I mean? And I'm glad to have this platform.
Sure. You mentioned Travis Tritt and Garth Brooks and all that a few minutes ago. What about some of the more classic country artists? Now, you just mentioned, of course, Gene Autry, but people like, say, Hank Snow or Roy Acuff, and I know we're going back quite a few years there, but
sure.
Does any of that have any meaning in your life other than the fact that it's damn good music? Has any of that had an influence on you?
Well, just, again, listening to George Jones when I was a kid through my father, not necessarily, I'm trying to think of how I can say it. Through my father, it's influenced me. Like growing up listening to that music, I have very fond memories of all the older music. And
that's where I'm going. I'm going. Our fathers shape our lives one way or the other. And that's great. That's great. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear.
I can relate completely to that because, again, going back a little further than 75% of our listeners probably, I can go back and remember growing up to not only Gene Autry, but cranking up the old Victrola and catching some Eddie